Oh, it's a bit of a long story, but I broke up with my ex after I came out to him as non-binary, and he didn't react well. Actually, I told him to take it or leave it, but he didn't have the guts to leave and instead tried to control every step of my transition down to what haircut I got. So I left him to be my true self. And after some reflecting on the relationship, I realized he also didn't really understand, or maybe just didn't care about my consent. Hindsight is 20/20 though. I was happy, and then I got a Facebook invite from his mom. I declined it and continued living my life. And then one of his old friends contacted me and asked what was going on with him. I probably would have left it alone, but I'd broken up with him before and he got a mutual friend involved to convince me to reconsider. And I ended up taking him big. It was a mistake. So I decided to contact his sister because I didn't want to unblock him, and I told her to pass along the message that I want to be left alone. I want his friends and family to stop contacting me, and under no circumstances would I be taking him back. This was months ago, and after that I didn't hear from him until an old mutual friend contacted me on FBA a month ago. She was saying hello and I hadn't spoken to her in years, so I decided to exchange pleasantries. After a bit of small talk, she told me to contact him. I wanted some closure, so I decided I would. It was awful, and he was exactly the same as when I'd left months ago, except maybe his codependency he won't address might have gotten even worse. If I wasn't happy about leaving him before, I definitely was after this. Eventually, we got into an argument about trans rights and he blocked me, so you'd think that'd be the end of it. But then I started seeing his car around, and I got a letter in his handwriting telling me if he can't have me, nobody should. Cliché much. And the other night I thought I heard his voice in my new house, but he wasn't there. He shouldn't even know where I live. Today I noticed a hole in my wall, like a peephole. I'm starting to freak out a little. My dog has been on edge all day and one of my kitchen knives has disappeared. I tried the police, but they were ridiculously unhelpful because he hasn't done anything yet. I thought about going to my sister's, but I don't want to put her or her kids in danger, and ditto for my best friend, especially considering he hates my best friend already. He blames her for the breakup, even though she didn't say anything until after I dumped him. I don't know what to do or where I could go that he wouldn't follow me. I'm scared. 3 months ago, my sister-in-law disappeared. Diana vanished without a trace. She was 17, 10 years younger than me and 8 years younger than my wife. While she was an adopted sibling, Diana and Emma, my wife, were really close. Emma was closer to Diana than to her blood siblings. Hell, some of that rubbed off on me too. I love that kid. We were both trying to help her figure herself out. She has had some issues she had to deal with. That's what you get from foster care and years of neglect. Diana was into the whole Satanism deal. She had only scratched the surface of the so-called dark side, Hollywood Satanism or pop Satanism. Fueled by youthful spirits of rebellion, she gravitated toward the anti-Christian, anti-traditionalist mindset. Finding her interests to be a well of untapped potential, I introduced her to the misanthropic Luciferian order, the Setian temple, and all other offshoots of devil worship to show her just how silly all things were. Soon enough, she ditched her whole Satanist approach, finding it utterly idiotic in her own words. Smart kid. The moment we found out she disappeared, I immediately regretted introducing her to the AMLO and Decima. My worries became justified in my own head after she had failed to show up anywhere a whole day after Emma had last seen her. Diana had reoccurring bouts of depression, some of which were incredibly close to being outright suicidal. The possibility of her taking her own life became all too real with each passing day. We couldn't find any signs to the contrary. I was eating myself over, potentially having a hand in that. Everything went to shit after Diana had gone missing. Emma was obviously having it worse than me, infinitely so. The stress of it all was driving us both crazy to the point we'd just spend nights in bed staring at the ceiling together, unable and unwilling to fall asleep. Life seemed to slow down and lose some of its color. Thankfully, the ordeal didn't affect our marriage. I'd hate to add additional stress to Emma's already crumbling psyche. The one thing that seemed strange to me was that my mother-in-law stopped calling in. Usually, she'd call a few times a week just to chat with Emma and me. She'd been trying to compensate for being a terrible mother earlier in Emma's life. I know that it's reasonable for a mother whose child had gone missing to lose interest in casual chatting, especially so soon after the disappearance. What was odd about it is that Diana was last seen by anyone at our place. And yet, my mother-in-law never called or came to talk or anything really. She just refused to speak. When Emma had driven over to talk to her mother in person, her mom simply refused her entry, and they ended up having a huge fight over it. I was livid when I found out about it. Once again, Emma's mother was having these pointless, idiotic outbursts over nothing aimed at her daughter, at my wife. Over absolutely nothing. It had nothing to do with Diana's disappearance. Nothing at all. She just refused to see her. That's it. There was little I could do, however, and the anger quickly turned into overwhelming sadness. That night, I'm sure I had a nightmare. I'm certain I was seeing the bloated, decaying, deathly pale, grotesque imitation of Diana's form stare at me from the distant end of a corridor covered in darkness. Maggot-infested gashes covered almost every inch of her arms, face, and neck. The nightmare became a reoccurring event, haunting my mind nearly every day for 3 months. Between nightmarish episodes, I've started suffering from sleep paralysis and the hallucinations associated with them. The worst part of it is that I don't see any odd demon lurking at the base of my bed or the corner of my room. I keep seeing that disgusting parody of Diana's body standing there, bleeding out worms and dirt as her blue eyes look at me pleading. I haven't told Emma about that. I didn't want to worry her. She knows I'm suffering from night terrors, and I'm pretty sure she is too. She had told me she was having nightmares as well. It scares me to think she might have been dealing with the same horrendous terrors I have. The breaking point came last week. I came home from work ready to just fall on the floor of the living room and pass out from sheer exhaustion. Seeing me home, Emma started throwing a fit, gradually raising her voice to the point of screaming at me about how she could no longer take it and being sick and tired of everything. At first, I did not know what to do or say, but then she just lowered her voice and kissed me. Sighing deeply, Emma said she needed a break from all of this. Right then, I found a new breath and suggested we go out camping for the weekend. We used to camp together all the time when we started dating. Camping away from the stress, the pain, everything was a good idea. Great even. Not a moment passed, and we both were already packing. I ran down to the basement to pick up our camping gear, but as soon as I opened the door, all of my plans were blown away. Along with my ability to breathe without suffocating on a thick cloud of rotten eggs and mold, like substances floating through the air. I haven't been there in months, but I clearly remembered not leaving anything that could sprout mold or spoil in the basement. Resisting the urge to vomit because of the stench, I stepped inside with a clear goal in mind: to turn on the light and get rid of the source of the vile stench. The light went up, illuminating the space all around me, thoughtlessly exposing what had stunk up the basement. It was forcing me to face the sickening mess carelessly dumped in a corner of the basement. Shock and nausea reverberated through my body as I could only stand there and stare at what was once Diana. Her partially decomposed body, bloated, black, and blue. Her torn jacket betrayed many cut marks. Her mother's favorite kitchen knife still lodged in her eye socket. Crazy exes. Okay, so I've been lurking on Reddit for a long time, and I finally decided to share this. I've been sitting for ages typing and retyping, trying to phrase this in a way that shows just how distraught I am about this whole situation. My name is Bethany, but people call me Beth. I'm 16 and I go to high school. I've just broken up with my boyfriend Alec, and he has started to seek some sort of payback on me because of it. We broke up about a month ago because I told him that I was too busy with grades and classes to continue a healthy relationship with him. He has really bad paranoia and often accused me of flirting with other boys when we were dating, which eventually got rather annoying as he couldn't trust me, and it led to lots of arguments. So as you can imagine, it was rather a messy breakup, and he even went as far as getting his friends to irritate me with text messages and even follow me home. I don't know why I put up with this guy for as long as I did. Anyway, I have a pretty solid group of friends that told his friends to back off, and they were no problem after that. Life was going fine as it could with the copious amounts of stress pushed on me due to exams, until I accidentally bumped into him in the corridor. Then all hell was raised and he started to scream insults at me in the hallway, causing teachers to remove him from school as he lunged at me. He always had a bad temper, but never once had he tried to hurt me. Once he smashed up a guy's face, I know what he's capable of, and it terrifies me to think that he would ever do that to me. He got excluded for a week, but the following week he came back to school. He glared at me across the classroom, flashing his teeth at me and drawing horrible drawings of me, and leaving them on my desk for me to find. I reported his behavior to the school, but it didn't stop there as I thought it would. His aggressive behavior progressed up a level, and he was now throwing sharp pieces of metal at me when I walked home. I was terrified, and it resulted in me asking one of my best friends, David, for a lift home every day. David was a year older than me and could drive a car, in case you were confused. As much as I tried to avoid Alec, he always seemed to be with me, following me constantly. Yesterday, as I considered going to the police, I had a letter come through the door of my house. It was written in red, inky writing, and as I opened the seal of the envelope, 3 pictures of me escaped from it. Each photo looked like it had been taken from behind me. One was of me entering David's car. The other 2 looked like they had been taken from outside my house, looking in at me whilst I got ready for school. The letter said, "Why did you make the wrong choice? Silly. We belong together. You'll realize that soon enough, baby. Why are you acting like I'm the one that's rejecting you? You left me, remember. Don't go to the school again complaining about me. Alec." This was the point that I broke. I showed my mom the pictures. She was just as horrified as me when she saw them. She phoned the police immediately, and they made a visit this morning. Of course, they wanted to see the pictures and letter that had been posted to our house. I went upstairs to retrieve the letter and photos. My room looked exactly as normal, except the window was open. The letter I left on my desk was gone, and the curtain was slightly ripped at the edge. He had been into my room and presumably stolen back the letter. The police told me that they couldn't do much without proof, but they did give us a contact number if anything else happened. I can't sleep knowing he's been watching me in my house, taking pictures of me, and even trespassing into my room and stealing back the creepy letter he wrote to me. What the fuck can I do? I'm terrified.